trade.
We're back at the Xhanti Convention Center where the 10th BRICS Summit is underway, hosted and chaired by South Africa. And we're joined now by economist Xhanti Payi. But just before we start our conversation, just some stats here that by 2016, the BRICS bloc had 41% of the world's population and just under 30% of the territory. The 5 countries control 23% of global GDP, worth about 40.6 trillion and 18% of trade. And this is where we bring Xhanti Payi in. Welcome and thanks for joining us. Are the economies of these countries improving on the basis of being part of BRICS?
Look, I mean, I think it's, debatable. Some are and some not so much. Remember, actually, that many of these countries are at different stages, different sizes. South Africa, obviously, arguably, one of the smallest. Then you might say, for example, in terms of infrastructure, it might be ahead of most of some of them. Then you might use different kinds of things. But I think one of the key things is that, the negotiations, at least, are showing that they might be actually moving forward at the level of saying, well, what are the key things that are needed by the different economies and how do they actually all work together to push those different agendas?
A lot of people will use the argument that South Africa is the smallest economy amongst the 5, but South Africa is quite a credible representative of the continent in terms of growing economies and infrastructure availability. The President has invited the current chair of ECOWAS, Togolese President Faure Nyasimbe. How will that stand South Africa in good stead?
Look, I mean, I think we, of course, just recently we signed into the Africa Free Trade Agreement, and that free trade area actually opens up a lot of opportunity for South African companies. Now, what I think BRICS has a huge opportunity to do in partnership with South Africa is to actually help industrialize, create the infrastructure that actually this is a reality. Because much of the things that we've talked about, as South Africans, as Africans, have not come to fruition because we haven't had the funds and the capital to be able to actually move in there and develop the continent. And even this trade, what kind of things are we going to be trading if we are actually not that well developed in terms of our own industries to manufacture, whether it's clothing, it's food, or all the different kinds of things that are there. So certainly one of the things that we can achieve here as South Africa in partnership with the continent and leveraging on BRICS is one of those things in which actually we move forward some of our needs and certainly our aspirations. And I think that's one important area where BRICS and South Africa can actually be brought together.
One magazine headlined it The Emperor's Wish List. What are the different members looking to gain out of this particular gathering? All of the different members are vying to get participation and collaboration in the different countries. The Indian Prime Minister starting in Uganda and touching in Rwanda, and the Chinese President also doing the same. How do they decide as to the modus operandi? How do we move on this one?
Yeah, certainly there's a lot of tension here. You remember that the Indians started moving ahead in terms of actually setting up a big meeting with all African heads of state. The Chinese decided they were going to do the same. There is the vying of Africa because it's a grand opportunity for those countries who want development and already developed. But also they've got their own tensions. I mean, certainly between the Chinese and the Indians, there is some tension there politically, and so that actually makes things quite interesting as people in the same block. So we all have different needs, certainly, because we have different sizes and we're looking for different things. And I think that's why a lot of people are asking, what is it really that brings us together? What is the thing that actually is going to hold? Remember, this is a voluntary group. Nobody's forced to be in it. And so these kinds of tensions that are happening, what is the glue that's going to keep us together? And this is going to be a very, very important question, especially also because a lot of Africans and South Africans in particular are starting to worry about whether or not this is, in China, they are getting another colonizer. Are we going to get a fair deal in terms of the trade partnerships and the investment partnerships, or are we getting another big brother as we've had before? So these are things that we've got to work out in each country.
That is such an important conversation that needs to be unpacked as to whether we're getting another colonizer or if we don't understand the partners, modus operandi, and how they would like to engage with both South Africa and the continent. But Xhanti Payi, an economist, thank you so much for your time. And we're here at the Sandton Convention Center, where BRICS 10, or BRICS 2018 if you prefer, is currently underway. Today is the second day. Proceedings will start with what is called the family album, or presidents taking pictures, and media will have the opportunity to cover that. And later on, there will be an address by the president of the BRICS Development Bank in terms of what the latest is in that institution. Let's take a break now. We'll be back on the agenda.